G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now, a lot of people ask me, where do I put my models and what do I do to keep them clean? Do I dust them? Well, I don't dust them. I put them in a display cabinet. And I'd planned to do a whole video on basically presenting your models and putting away in display cabinets on the weekend. But you may notice there's a bit of a hole here. There's nothing there. That's because this was there and then it was down there. Yes, what had happened is my robot who cleans the floor had been slowly bumping this every now and then as it was going around doing its roboting stuff, right? So models had sort of drifted. Now I'd noticed a couple of airplanes had fallen down the back. They'd sort of fallen off the little stands I've got here for them, right? So I'd gone to open up the cabinet to just rearrange things. So my entire focus was on those little aeroplanes in the back, failing to see the motorbike, which was at the front, that had slowly moved over, was teetering on the edge of the shelf. So opened up the door and whoosh, motorbike crashed all over the floor. So I didn't make my video on doing cabinets displays, but I'll show you some of the ways I basically keep dust off things and how I display my models here in Castle Houdini. Now this got me thinking, right? Because I'd planned to get that video done early in the morning, just talk about cabinets displays and how I keep my work in progress out of the dust as well. Nothing ever gets dusted. I don't dust. I just don't dust. I'm a bachelor living here by myself, right? The only dusting happens when Bask the Cat goes around and flicks their tail and the robot goes around and sucks up what it can. Now, I planned to do it in the morning because in the afternoon I was going to get my, vile rust injection. The zombie apocalypse plague thing. And yes, I can feel the nanobots going through my body as we speak. Don't worry, I've got my tinfoil hat. Now, on the thing about hats, right? On my last video, there were complaints that I was wearing a beanie, right, to keep myself warm. And even now I've got a scarf on. The reason I've got a scarf on is I'm proudly wearing my arse t-shirt, right? This is Australian Research and Space Exploration. It's our NASA, right? But in typical Australian tradition, try saying that with your teeth in. In typical Australian tradition, we completely cocked up the acronym. So it's arse, yeah. But anyhow, so here I am. I'm going to go get my, the jab, keep everyone happy, basically keep the man at sort of bay. Because, if I don't have the jab, I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. I can't work. So whether you like it or not, or whatever you believe, so you need to get the jab, okay? Now, the complaint was I was wearing a beanie. Well, if I didn't, you get a screen full of this, right? And you don't want to see that. That's why I wear hats all the time, is so I don't scare the kiddies, all right? Bald as a bandicoot. Quite often I'm shaved absolutely clean, all right? But I've let it grow. It's really long at the moment. I think I've got a whole millimetre's growth there. Yeah, I know. Practically a hillbilly. Some say that there was hair on my head, but when I pulled my beard out to make it longer, it all got sucked through. That's probably true as well. Anyway, now, this video will be the Unfixed Gooch. And the reason is, after I realised, well, there probably wasn't much material for keeping dust off things, but we'll talk about that. But there's probably more material and probably of greater interest to talk about what do you do when you break a model, like when your cat knocks it off the shelf or your kids come in and wreck the bloody cabinet, as happened to Becca. His boy decided to go in and help him out, open up his cabinet, got all these models out and wrecked them, okay? Or you're moving houses, I've done a number of times, there's always breakages. So what do you do? What is it? Do you go into panic? You lock yourself away and sob, Or are there some methods and plans? Are there things you can do to fix your models up? Or is it just not worth it? Buy a new one. Let's talk about that. Roll the music. So this is my display cabinet. And I have my tanks down the bottom, right? The ones I've got on display. Quite a few others that are either broken in boxes from moving, or I've just lost favour with them and they're sitting out there. Some of my aircraft, ones that I'm particularly happy about. And then up here, well, there was a collection of motorbikes. There's sort of one there. That's the one that I won a medal for. My Spitfire that I'm very happy with, and the first aircraft I did after coming back to the hobby, the little Skyhawk, and that lovely little steam-driven little car back there. And over here, more motorbikes and spaceships, Thunderbirds, all kinds of things. Right? Some you've seen, some you haven't. There's a mosquito. What's that one? That's the Beaufighter. Yeah, Beaufighter's back there. So they're all there in my display cabinet. I've just got a little LED lighting strip in there, which just lights it up for my own enjoyment. or if somebody comes to visit. On top I have my awards and my medals and all the rest of it, and a little luck line there, so I throw all my savings in, change. On the other side of the room I have this tall display cabinet which has my ships in. It's a bit hard to see this time of the day because normally it's all lit up at night time. But you sort of get a feel for it. It's here near the French doors. So, but I've got my Varag there and my submarines, and there's the Bounty, which I really enjoy looking at every day. And down here the Grash Spay and my Nippon Maru, and a little Yamato there, and even the infamous Kraken. Yes, there you go. For those of you worried about my little motorbike, well, I have got that far with the repairs. I've, let's show you some pics. I've been using a lot of brass rod, right? A lot of this stuff, and I have been drilling out all the locating points and putting in little brass rods and drilling holes, and then CA gluing the whole thing back together. So that will solve that problem. Now, Bask the Cat. Well, I can't blame her for that one. That was entirely my fault. As was the Nippon Maru, that little Nippon Maru sailing ship. I had it all finished. It was looking really lovely. I'd put in the display case. What I hadn't done is I had not glued the hull and the display sand together with kind of just gravity holding it all together there, which is fine. I was going to get round to doing that, as I do. And one day the fan was on. There was a breeze coming in. I needed to open up that cabinet for some reason. And the Nippon Maru was quite close to the edge of the shelf. And so, open! Vacuum caused by me opening it, fan blowing, gust of wind, the Nippon Maru went, whee! Crunch! And we snapped the bowsprit and broke quite a bit of the rigging. And I've done a bit of a repair on it, but if you'd look closely before the video, you'd notice it's got a few bends and droops and a few little wobbly bits, and oh well. So it never went into competition because it's basically ruined. And that had happened, I'd moved, and the Greek warship, right, photo, that had never gone to competition, and I was going to take it in when I just moved to Brisbane. I thought I will take that Greek warship in, haven't shown that at club, put that into competition, and I pulled it out of the box for transport. And what had happened is the, again, bowsprit problem, the bowsprit, which had been under tension, had pulled up and snapped and gone all the way up to the main mast. So I needed, again, to try and fix that. But what I found is if you can drill a hole exactly the same position, like middle of the mast, on either piece, and drill in about 3 or 4 millimeters, then you can put a decent piece of brass rod, right, blast, you can blast in, piece of brass rod, right, fixes the problem. Yeah, basically CA glue that in and then put the thing together, and it'll hold. The best part is you won't get a shear problem, like if you just try to super glue it or glue it, as soon as you put a little bit of, you put a rigging on it or it's bumped, it'll shear and snap off because you've got a weakness at that point. That's the trouble. You can fix a model and then go put it on your shelf and it all falls to bits. You're going to have to somehow strengthen it, and I do it with brass rods. So I put little brass rods into everything, fix it all up, unless I can scrape back to plastic and I know the part's just sitting there, and then I can basically plastic weld, use a bit of Revel contactor, which really liquefies things, unlike Tamiya Thin, which is just gives you a nice adhesion, but still you have a surface that can snap apart. But the Revel contactor will literally weld and bond and actually destroys the plastic, melts it. Now, one of the problems I have with broken models is due to this little fur ball here. Yes, delightful as she is, and she loves to sleep here in the hobby room, is sometimes, Basky, wake up. Yes, say hello to everybody, Basky Cat. Oh, yes, you're not interested in your public, eh? No, go away, send me fish. Okay, well that's Bask the Cat. Yes, let's talk about her. Now, cats. Dogs don't seem to do it as much, and I don't know about pet mice or parakeets or anything. Who knows? But cats. Cats tend to knock things down, and case in point, when I was living in that shed many, many years ago, which is supposed to be like for a few weeks, temporarily living in this shed till I found my own place. I ended up being there 6 months. Yes, it was sort of like that movie. What's that one where that woman keeps that guy tied to a bed, for sexual favours, something like that. Yeah, there wasn't much in the way of sex, but there were favours. Yeah. Anyhow, enough said about that. I think I'm under a legal obligation not to talk about that since the court case. Right, so I had my Grush Spay sitting on the bookcase. I just got a lot of it done, almost finished the thing, just about ready to rig it. had it sitting on the bookcase in there, very tight sort of arrangement in that shed. I had a bed, I had a desk. My desk for my work doubled as my hobby room, and then I had a little bookcase, and then my TV was beside it. And of course, Bask could get to everything. She could jump from the bed to the bookcase to the whatever. She was everywhere. You couldn't really stop her. So yeah, she jumped on there. Oh, what's this, Harry? What's this? What have you done? You know, what's this thing? It hit the floor, and it was lots of pieces, and basically boxed it up. And I didn't really get around to fixing it until I'd moved house and actually found somewhere to live many years later. So it was like that. Now, a few years back, and I did a video on this. I just finished the lamb waffle schlapper, right, which was going to go into competition. And I'd pretty well got the Varag all together as well. And that was, you know, on its last stages of things needed doing to it. And I put them on the bookcase in the hobby room that I just recently set up, which had a whole lot of kits I was building in, against a wall. And Bask, to the best of my knowledge, didn't really jump on any furniture there. I mean, I had admonished her for her previous transgressions, and for years she had not been, to my knowledge, up on anything, you know, not even the piano. When I first had her, she used to jump on the piano and play the piano. Here's a pick. Yes, piano playing bad. Woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I woke to my piano being played in my bedroom eerily. Oh, what the hell? I got the ghost of Bach in my bedroom. No, it was Cat. She walked over and clicked on the on button and then walked across the keys. Dong, 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 dong. It wasn't a bad little tune. A little bit scary, and certainly woke me up at 2 o'clock in the bloody morning, I can tell you. Anyway, I digress. So here I'd put these two kits just to sit up there, and I was going to take a photograph. And I also had my list of things to do, because this was New Year's Eve or something, or New Year's Day. And I had my list of things to do for that coming year, you know, the things that I planned to accomplish. And I went in the kitchen to make a coffee. This was out at the farm, so it was quite a walk down to the kitchen, you know. And then I heard this almighty crash, and the cat came running out of the hobby room at 1,000,000 miles an hour, very guiltily, out our cat flap, thump, 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 you know. And what the heck was going on there, you know? And I went in there to find my list of things was on the floor. The lamb waffle schlapper was on the floor in pieces, and the Varag was on the floor in pieces. Everything was broken and smashed up, and I said a few words like, "Oh dear, bother." Yes, they were more like fire truck. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, because you can't say fuck because they demonetise you. Oops. Now, so those two items wrecked. So what did I do? Well, I kind of boxed up the Varag, and I didn't even get to it until years later when I'd moved here, which is like 2 moves later. And then finally I sat down, and the Varag is pretty well done. It's sitting in that display cabinet, but I just didn't have the heart to work on it. I did manage to have a go at the lamb waffle schlapper. I noticed that even though bits of track had broken off and this, that, everything, like the motorbike, everything was in pieces that were clean, that could be clicked back in, and it was easy enough to do a bit of pinning and gluing. I got it all back together. I put it into competition for that January. Later on that January, we had a club competition, and it got first place. It did big vote, yes. Everyone really liked it. Maybe they were just feeling sorry for me, so who knows. There have been numerous things that have fallen down and fallen over and got broken. Some in my anger, you know, in frustration of building. The Smur Mackie is a case in point. That was a horrible kit. Absolutely terrible kit. The fuselage were different lengths, you know, things didn't mate up. There was just basically parts were totally globby and horrible. And I spent ages on it, and I sort of got to the point where it was reasonable and I was getting it together. And then I put the floats on, and I realised I'd have to weight the floats, otherwise the thing was a tail setter. So I drilled some holes in the floats underneath, and I put in some ball bearings, and then I dropped in some CA glue, and then I sealed the whole thing up and let it sit overnight. And yeah, it sat on its toes. It was fine. It was sitting really good. But if you don't allow CA glue to breathe, right, if you don't allow the vapours to go off, then you can get an exothermic reaction. There's a big word. Lots of heat. And what happened is the front of the floats cooked, and they went all wobbly. They completely got all wobbly. And when that happened, I got very angry and very mad, and I ripped the floats off and threw them against the wall, and, you know, and just about ruined that kit. Luckily, I'd bought 2 of them. One had gone to the Becca, but he decided after he saw me building mine how horrible it was. He said, "Look, take this." And he rescued the day that I used the floats out of that, and I set everything in with PVA white wood glue, and allowing ventilation. PVA white wood glue takes a bit longer to set, but it's quite good. It's quite my favourite thing actually for setting things in place in hull halves and ball bearings, that sort of thing, because there is very little heat. It doesn't have a hugely exothermic reaction. So those were my solutions to various problems. And the one lesson I've learned is when something is broken, don't get angry about it. Right? Don't get angry about it, because if you do, you'll get mad, you'll break it, and then you may lose your temper as I did and smash it up, and then you'll regret that. You'll either have to buy the model again and completely rebuild it, if you like that subject, which sometimes I don't want to do. I often don't want to do the same exact thing twice. I don't like that. I know there's people that build the same model, same size, same scale, same manufacturer. Yes, I like this Tamiya kit. I'll build 20 of them. Well, if you can do different colours and liveries, and although building a Tamiya kit's just a matter of putting glue in the box and shaking it, isn't it? Yeah, so I suppose they're painting 20 different versions, not actually building the model. But anyhow, I digress. Lastly on this subject, I do have a number of kits that were broken in transit. So when I moved house, I moved so many times. If you'd watched my early videos, I was moving every 6 months, or sometimes I moved 2 or 3 times in a month because of the way things were going on in my life. I was in quite a sort of a bad way. Not like now where we're all settled, nearly been, I'm in my 3rd year here in this cottage, and we're quite happy here. Even though we're in Brisbane with all the problems of being in Brisbane, there's plenty of Indian restaurants to keep me happy. Yeah. But anyhow, there's kits that are still stored away that broke in the move. I've got a CR32, I think it is, a tiny little biplane. Here's a pic. And I really enjoyed doing the camo on that and all the work I put in. I put it into competition. I think I might have got a 2nd or 3rd. I know I didn't win, but everyone was quite fascinated at how I got that tiny little thing to look. They all thought I'd airbrush the camo, and I did it all by brush. And that all the struts kind of snapped. And if you know anything about that aircraft, the strut assembly is a pain in the butt. It's really hard to do at the best of times. To fix it, I would have to basically scratch build the entire strut arrangement and then pin it and glue it, and then I'd have to re-rig it. And I haven't been bothered, haven't been up to that yet. And the war spite similarly got broken in transit. I do have plans for totally rebuilding that, and I bought a donor kit. I did buy another kit to replace parts that were so badly broken. The donor kit luckily was fairly cheap because it was a kit that had parts missing from it, but they weren't the parts that I had broken. So between the donor kit and my kit, there's one complete kit in there. So that's good. But there are other models there that'll just never see the light of day. Whether I'll buy them again and build them, don't know, don't know at all. But the thing is, you can't have every model out in display. So with those display cabinets, I do kind of rotate things a bit too. There are kits that I like, but they're all in storage, and they're in these great big containers with lots of compartments that they slide under your bed. They're great big long things. And they're all in there in compartments in tissue, so they're quite safe until you move. But I kind of every now and then have a bit of a clean out. The only dusting I need to do is the shelves seem to get a little bit of dust, a tiny fine amount in my display cabinets. And that's easy enough to remove, but to date, I've been basically back at the hobby probably about 7 years. To date, I haven't really dusted any models, so I probably can't see it with my Bandicoot eyes, so there you go. Now, while I'm building my kits, I keep the dust off them, and I use plastic containers. This one is big enough to put a shipping. This had the Bounty in it. The Bounty, once it got too big to fit into my jeweller's cabinet, I got a jeweller's cabinet down there was given to me, one that had watches and rings in, and it has a little hinged door, but it's glass panelled around it. That's really handy for putting in my big, long, larger works in progress. It's, like my Panther tank that sat there for years. It's there, I can see it from here. I'll get around to painting it. But this was tall enough to put a ship in, and the St. Louis just fits in it. But I don't know, once I get the mast on everything, I'm going to have to get something bigger. The Schnell boat is in there, it just fits diagonally, but once I actually start building that up, it won't fit in there. But the Schnell boat's in there at the moment because I've just cleaned and washed all that, and I was going to build the Schnell boat last weekend after I did the quick tug video. But that didn't happen. Once I smashed the motorbike, basically all my attention's been on building the motorbike. But basically, I keep things out of the dust. So that's what I do. I keep things, so that they won't get dust on them. I keep them in containers. So big lunchbox containers, big Tupperware containers. This is like a big storage container. And you can buy them in the dollar shops. So I think that just cost me $10, like a shekel, and they can get used over and over. And it's a great resource. So I have a number of those in the hobby room where I can put half-built projects aside. If I get sick of them, put them aside, and at least I know they're not going to get covered in dust. So there you go. That's basically how I display my models, how I keep my dust off my models, and how I fix my broken models, and the tantrums that I throw when things just don't go right. We all do it. We all do it. Okay? So there you go. So I hope that was interesting. I know it's a bit of a ramble and it's just me talking, but sometimes these chatty videos are kind of nice. And in fact, to that end, and because this is the end of the video, don't go just yet. If you've made it this far and you kind of like the chatty thing, I used to do these live videos. The last one I did was, I think, New Year's Day or something, or Christmas, just after Christmas last year. And for about an hour, I just sit and chat. It's a live one feed where you can actually text, you know. It's not a super chat because I don't know how to do that yet, just a live chat. So basically you text, you ask me questions, and I'll reply to them. So anything you want to know about what I do and how I do things, you know, my life, my universe, anything, I'll try and answer everything. The answer's 42, by the way, to every question. And if you like that, if you got to this end of the video and you like the chatty thing, okay, the waffly thing, then let me know. And if I get enough people saying, yeah, Harry, we'd like to see another live video, I'll try and schedule one in sometime in October. A big shout out to all my patrons who make these videos possible, because their sponsorship helps me get through the tough times. In fact, if I hadn't had my Patreon and a little bit of monetization from YouTube, I would not have got through lockdown. So thank you very much, guys. You paid for rent, you paid for food, and paid to feed Bask the Cat, more importantly. Yeah, so if you want to support me and help me out on this channel, well, you could like this video, you could comment, you could hit that bell notification, all these things. You can subscribe to my channel. You can go to Patreon. There's a link here somewhere, you know. And look, for as little as $1 a month, my patrons get to see my videos a day early and advert free. All right, so that's their little reward for just slinging me, you know, a few dollars. And the rest of you get to see them a day later. So if you'd like to see my videos early and help me out, I'll get to Patreon, sling me $1 or $2 or $5 or $50 or whatever a month. It really helps out and allows me to keep on making these videos. All right, that's about all I can say now. That's enough waffle. I don't know how long this will run on for. It's probably far too much information. Okay, it's goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.